Hey guys, Garo97 again, this time with a review of the 1/100 scale Monster Grade Hyakushiki version 2.0 from the Zeta Gundam and Double Zeta Gundam series. Same awesome mobile suit, different pilot. And talking about awesome, the gold plating on this thing is absolutely fantastic. Rather than the mirror coating of the version 1.0, this time it's a still shiny honey gold coating, and this is the way I would imagine the real Hyakushiki to be. Rather than being a bloody mirror, it still is shiny enough to be the Hyakushiki. And talking about awesome coating, also all of the parts, well, pretty much all of them are undergated with only a very few exceptions. For example, on the cuffs here at the top you can see a tiny nub mark. When we move to the back, we have some more on the beam sabers, because those are of course very difficult to hide. A few on the wings, and when we move up the skirt armor, it will reveal one more right there. So of course they can't get a 100% accuracy rate on those undergatings, but they did try their damn best. One little annoyance I have with the mirror coating, well, with the honey coating, is that not every part seems to be equally coated, and this is especially visible right here. This is much darker, almost orange, while this part is almost silver, and I think on camera it is slightly exaggerated, probably partly due to the light, but this isn't completely white. If it's white on camera, it's still a very light gold, but it's definitely lighter than this. So that is a slight annoyance. It does happen quite often with these kinds of coatings, but it has to be mentioned. Moving on to some more awesome stuff about the colors, and that is the tiny little details they did with the other colors. We have a very nice blood red for the feet and various little thruster details. And the awesome thing is that even inside of those tiny red parts, we see the gunmetal gray. And that is some really nice finish, meaning that you almost don't have to panelline this thing in order to look awesome. Talking about the gunmetal, it's also visible right here in these slits. That's also the gunmetal. And almost none of this machine is panellined when it comes to the gold, because it also seems that Gundam markers don't really seem to like this gold plating. And some more little details on the back. We also have some silver shining through right here on the back of the leg, some silver in the wing binders. And finally, we also have some very nice dark blue for the chest, for the backpack. And these hoses are the same very nice blood red. Finally, we also have some see-through parts. However, for the moment, they are covered up with very nice metallic green stickers. But that is the cool part. You get nice shiny green stickers, as they should be for these parts if you don't want to paint. And if you do want to paint, well, parts underneath are clear and go crazy. Same in the back of the head, it's the same clear part. So if you want to paint that, it's going to look even more gorgeous. And surprisingly enough, the same holds true for the weapons. Usually this would just be a sticker and you would have to completely paint it yourself, but underneath here is actually, just as with the main cameras on the head, a clear part. And for some even more cool detail, we do have some color separation. This part here is very nice blue. We have a very cool golden chain going through there for the energy. And even the bazooka has some color separation. We have the silver here that's seeded through the gunmetal, same silver there underneath. This way. And then for a few more stickers, we have black ones on the bottom and on top of the wing binders on both sides. And the final stickers we get are the stickers for the eyes, but as you might have noticed, you don't even have to use the stickers for the Hyakushiki to look awesome. And the reason I haven't used the stickers is that these stickers are supposed to go on the outside. And when I put it together, I decided, you know what, let's see what happens if I don't apply the stickers and how that black on the inside is going to look through that clear visor. And I very, very much like the feel of that. It gives it more of a shiny feel as opposed to when you would just use the sticker. Now you might be thinking to yourself, well, we're getting 3 stickers and there seems to be a visor over there. What are we possibly going to do about that? Well, they actually gave us 3 dedicated faceplates, and this is one with the eyes molded in. So once again, if you want to paint, it's going to be a breeze. And this one has the scanning lines for the targeting sensor also molded in. So if you're worried about having to paint on those very awesome red lines, well, they are simply molded in there as a guide. And then this one that's on there right now is just a even one for the normal Hyakushiki. Then, as with every Monster Grade, we get some marking stickers. We get the dry transfer ones and we get the normal peel-off ones. For the dry transfer ones, we get the most important ones. We get the Hyaku symbol, we get the Delta symbol, because this thing was, of course, originally meant to be the Delta Gundam, but it didn't quite work out as planned. We have some Ayuk insignias, some Ayuk names right there, Hyakushiki. Once again, a smaller Delta, MSN 00100, Anaheim Electronics. And then the peel-off ones are the traditional warning symbols. Unfortunately, can't really read too much caution. And those are, of course, going to go underneath the thrusters because it is still a bad idea to put your head right up a thruster. Up next is articulation. And the head goes nicely upwards, nicely downwards, very far downwards actually, not quite as much side to side, and I do not recommend trying to force that because, well, gold plating will go side to side. Well, we'll wiggle to the side a bit and forwards and backwards on a chicken movement. Also, probably a good idea to mention that now, the scalp can be very easily removed in order to get those different eyes. And the arms, I'll rotate around all the way, forwards nicely, all the way like that, backwards also a bit, and up on a normal joint, and then this ball joint will also move it upwards. You can even get it slightly more upwards if you move this joint forwards. Then back down. Shoulder armor will, of course, accommodate by going upwards, and the flap here will also go in and out. Arms rotate around all the way, bend at the elbow at 2 joints. And one thing I found pretty unique is that even the wrist has some movement, though calling it the wrist might not be as accurate because the joint seems to be right in the middle of the arm, and that is a pretty interesting extra joint there. The hands are in ball joints, will wiggle around, turn around, and do everything a ball joint does. Hands are your traditional 2.0 hands, except for the thumb, which is very unique. And from what I've seen, it definitely allows for some, well, it kind of depends. Some things this thumb does better, whereas some other things the traditional thumb does better, where it is in a slightly different position. But it is an interesting position for the thumb to be, and it definitely works for this model kit and its accessories, so that is a good decision. The fingers, as always with the 2.0 models, we have a separate index finger with 2 joints, one at the base and then one at the first knuckle. Then the 3 fingers are molded together at the first knuckle and also have double articulation. But as always, they can be separated in order to make it a lot easier to flip someone the bird. But no one saw that. Then going to the bag, even the backpack has some slight articulation. The thrusters go a little bit up and down. And what I really love about this model is the wing binders, because they can be in stored mode or in extended mode. And this is going to come in handy for either the Balyut system or for storing the weapons. I will also turn around slightly on here, go in and out. So it's not as easy to turn the wing binders around as on some of the other models, because when they're in stored normal mode, the swivel joint is up here, so they kind of turn around sideways. But it is what it is. And of course we have the wing flaps, which will also go in and out. The waist is very nicely articulated, goes forwards, backwards, and then the joint at the bottom where he will rotate around all the way also allows him to go side to side, and it is a peg joint rather than a ball joint, so no forwards and backwards movement there. Then also this here, the entire side skirt thing is on its own little joint, so when he goes side to side, the side skirts will also go slightly side to side individually. Well, independently from the main body. So it's always important to make sure those are kind of evened out. Then we do have an opening cockpit, but there is a slight problem with the cockpit, and that is these fangs here on his chest. Normally when the cockpit is closed, these fangs should go to the middle, but for some reason, they are extremely difficult to get to the middle, and once they are in the middle, if you even start moving it the slightest, they automatically slide back open. And that was definitely kind of annoying, so when you get this model, I recommend just leave them like this. It's not worth the trouble, really. Because within 1 minute, well, within 10 seconds of posing this thing, they will once again be opened, revealing the cockpit with the little pilot inside. It's not easy to see him with the lighting. Close that back up, moving on to the legs. Side skirts go up. Let's pull his arms up as well. And look at that. That is a perfect split. And one cool thing the legs have is that they are on these very interesting hinges, which makes it even easier for this machine to do a crouching pose. So that is definitely very awesome for the articulation. Then the back skirt moves nicely backwards, front skirts go all the way upwards, are jointed individually. And he can, in fact, pull even a grande car. And well, it is the Hyakushiki, a close combat mobile suit, so you would definitely want that on your Hyakushiki. They will also rotate around, bend at 2 joints. Come on, go up for a perfect bend. There we go. And of course, this has a very nice separating movement. One thing about the front skirts is they do like to pop off those tiny little ball joints. So let's quickly pop that back in there. There we go. And then the feet will go down, and then you can see this very nice piston moving. So in fact, the feet are on 2 joints. First we have the top one, which will activate the piston movement. And then they are on a lower joint for even more maneuverability. So we go up like that, and then up on that lower joint like that. Now for the side-to-side movement, it is a rather weird joint that's going on. So you can't... So technically the feet will be able to go side to side, but it's kind of in like an angled mode, which actually looks surprisingly good. When I was building it, I thought that that was going to be a very awkward joint, but it does look rather natural once you actually have that pose. So that is as far as he's going to go. So don't worry when you're building it and you think, well, that doesn't quite look like your traditional joint. It actually works very, very well. And then the final joint on the feet is the toe joint, which will go backwards quite nicely, making the crouch absolutely perfect. Unfortunately, you can't really go to the top that much. It's like a tiny, tiny amount. Like, and that's all you can do. It would have been cool if you could also do that, but hey, it is what it is. And I almost forgot about the extra thrusters on the back of the leg. So simply pull this out and it will reveal a small additional thruster in order to help with the Hyakushiki's already phenomenal performance. For accessories, we get pretty much anything you would expect and a few additional nice details. Starting off with what's on the mobile suit already, we have very nicely molded in Vulcan guns. We have this multi-launcher on his finger, which is actually seen using in the anime a few times. And I'm gonna be honest, I always thought it was shooting out of one of the joints in the fingers, but it seems like that is what this plate on the hand is actually for. So that is some very nice detail right there. Then turning me around, we have the beam sabers, which are stored pretty nicely. And when you just look at the beam saber, it doesn't really look like it would grab onto anything. The thing is, this bar here will actually go in a peg right on there, securing the beam saber. What you will immediately notice about the beam saber is that the clip does look a bit out of place. It's gray, stands out a bit, but I can't live with that, because if they would have also coated that in gold, that would have rubbed off really quickly. Talking about those clips, they are actually very secure once you can get them out. There we go. And use that clip to push this one out, because we have a clip on both the hand and on the beam saber itself, and on the other accessories as well. So once we have that in there, there we go. The one problem I have with the double clip is that you cannot hold the beam saber in reverse with the clip. So you're gonna have to get him to hold the beam saber if this one wants to come out. There we go. So if you want to hold the beam saber like this, you cannot use the clips, but as you can see, now come on, work with me here. The fingers are mostly strong enough to hold onto the beam saber. And for the beam sabers, we get two very nice clear yellow beam blades. Putting them in there, there we go. And there we go. As I said, the one with the clip is absolutely perfect. You don't even need the fingers to hold on to it. And even the one without the clips, absolutely perfect. And combined with that articulation, that's going to allow for some really sweet poses. Then we get the beam rifle and of course the clay bazooka. And the cool thing about these is that the pegs will be able to go either way. So if you want to hold the beam rifle in the left hand, simply put it like that. And if you want to hold the beam rifle in the right hand, you simply push it through the other side. And you put it in the hand. It might be a bit difficult to get it in there. So the easiest way is to simply remove the hand, line up the pegs, and that is the only complaint I have about those double pegs. It sometimes can be a bit difficult to line them up, but the trade-off is that those weapons are going to be in there extremely solid. Just push that through. And fortunately, these are a lot easier to push through than the beam sabers, because as you might be able to tell on camera, the peg is slightly thicker than the handle, so it is very easy to simply push it through and then pull them out, because there are also tiny ridges on the end which will make it even easier to pull them out. Once again, just simply pull out the hand and line it up. And on the clay bazooka, we have the movable handle, just as with the beam rifle. Line that up. And one unfortunate part about the clay bazooka is that because the ammo pack is so close to the hand, it is impossible to get him to hold it over the shoulder. Fortunately, it will go underneath just fine once you get it in there. There we go. Another cool feature that both the beam rifle and the clay bazooka have is removable ammo packs, but neither of them come with extras. So, well, you can pull this off. There is no way to store them anywhere on the mobile suit because, of course, the Hyakushiki, sadly enough, does not come with a shield. I mean, is that any surprise from the guy who previously liked to go into battle without even having a normal suit on? And is a bit difficult to remove, but eventually you will be able to pull it off. Unfortunately, it's not going to be really detailed. What is slightly more detailed is the ammo pack of the clay bazooka, which actually has little rockets molded into them, and we actually get a spare of that. So as you can see, that is some very nice detail. Sadly enough, we don't get an extra pack to put them in. Not that we had a place to store them in the first place, but that might have been a cool addition. And the ability to store it somewhere, oh, I don't know, on the legs where the Balyut pack would attach to. But hey, now say that you don't want to use the beam rifle or the clay bazooka, well, simply turn him around, stretch the wings, and be careful not to scrape off any paint of the shoulder armor. Then you collapse the handles of both of them. There we go. Then for the beam rifle, we pull out the storage clip and you simply put them on the backpack on the same spaces that the Balyut would attach. There we go. Now I have noticed that this does make the Hyakushiki quite a bit more back heavy, probably because they are a bit sticking out, but overall it shouldn't be too much of an issue as long as you're careful with your very nicely coated machine. I mean, just make sure this thing doesn't fall over and accidentally scratch off any paint, because that would be quite a drama. Now we of course get a few more accessories, and it's first of all a little standing Quattro figure, and a quite nicely detailed one at that. Now the cool thing about the minifigures is that they were actually on a runner that we got 2 times, which means that we get a Char clone, or in this case I guess a Quattro clone. But that also means that we get a second pilot figure, and this is handy because, well, the Hyakushiki is piloted by 2 guys with 2 different normal suits. So you can paint one as Beecham and you can paint the other one as Quattro, not Char. The pilots aren't the only accessories we're getting doubles of, however. We also get a second antenna. And that is a very good idea because this is definitely one of the pieces that would be the easiest to break. So it's really cool they gave us a spare one. Then we also get this adapter here for the Action Base #1 for all of your action posing delight. Then the final accessories that we do get are going to be pretty pointless unless you buy the other Hyakushiki that came with the Balyut system, or you buy the P Bandai Balyut system, which, if I'm not mistaken, is simply identical. So these parts are necessary to connect to the Balyut system. Talking about the Balyut system, he has one more feature for that, and that is that the beam saber rack is able to go down once again in order to accommodate the Balyut system. There we go. And that brings us to the final feature of this machine, the transformation. Now, I know what you're thinking. The Hyakushiki isn't a transformable mobile suit, but it was actually built as a transformable mobile suit. It was supposed to be able to transform, but halfway through they decided it's not going to work out. And what Bandai did with this model kit is they incorporated exactly that idea. It is able to partly transform in a way that definitely makes sense for the Hyakushiki. Simply turn this around and the legs can transform in a very Zeta-esque way. Oops. Simply have that right there, and then the feet go like that in a, like I said, very similar fashion as the Zeta Gundam. And the thing about this feature is they didn't have to include this, but it is cool that they did. It's just one of those extra little tidbits that is very cool to see. Also because it makes complete sense in the Gundam universe, because the Hyakushiki, they only decided to scrap the construction kind of halfway through, and they only decided to scrap the transformation halfway through the construction of this machine, so it would make sense for the Hyakushiki to have remnants of this transformation. And really, all they needed was a way to get the arms tucked underneath and then a shield to serve as the cockpit, and this wouldn't have been too bad. I know that would kind of been the Delta Gundam. As always, the inevitable question is, do you want to buy this? And well, inconsistent coding aside, this is absolutely the best Hyakushiki that's on the market right now as a model kit. So for 6,800 yen, if right now you don't really notice anything bothering you about the color scheme, absolutely go ahead and get it. Because if right now nothing's bothering you, nothing probably will bother you, because other than that coding, that inconsistent coding, there isn't anything that is really wrong with this machine. It's just actually it's kind of like the Hyakushiki itself. It's lean, it's mean, it's got great articulation, and it is an overall fantastic machine. Well, except for that final episode. But putting that aside, this is absolutely something worth getting. 6,800 yen is on the more expensive side, but you are paying for that very nice honey-coated gold finish. On to size comparisons, and what better size comparison to do than with another non-Char guy. Johnny Raiden Zaku high mobility type, as you can see, is slightly higher than the Zaku 2. And same goes for the standard sized RX-78-2 version Katoki. As with most of the Zeta era machines, they are slightly bigger, and that of course also accounts for the slightly higher price, that and the coding. And then here is next to the 1/44th scale Higher Renewable Century one. This is from the Griffios War set, which is why it's also the same honey coat, and the ACM Pro. Gotta say, the proportions on this thing are a lot better, and he also looks a lot more lean and mean as the Hyakushiki should look. And finally, here is next to the PlayStation 2 Hyakushiki version. So that's all for this review, and see you guys next time.